Hello everyone and welcome to Extreme Graphics Tech. My name is Angelo and today I'm going to be talking about my experience with Dlss 3. But first I want to thank everybody because we're more than 200 people already in the channel, and the video from the AMD RX 6800 has been the most popular one, and I hope people subscribing to the channel are going to check the other content, and I will keep uploading videos as much as I can, maybe twice a week or something like that, depending on what is happening in the tech world. So the more we are, more people we are, the better. Hopefully I'll get to 1,000 soon, so I can start monetize the channel and brands can start looking for me and stuff like that. So I will appreciate if you subscribe to the channel. It will really help me grow faster. So thank you very much for that. But however, I talked about DLSS 3 a while ago. I'm going to say DL3 or something like that because it really doesn't roll on my tongue that easy, that one. So I talked about DLSS 3 a while ago, just from a pure technical standpoint, explaining what it is, why is it good, and so on. But today I want to focus more on my own experience and also on a thing that I see that is I would like to sort of explain. I see many people on many channels, even on Twitter, having discussions about DF is the worst that has happened to games. When I say DF, I'm talking about Digital Foundry, and I'm not here to defend the Digital Foundry. The reason I'm mentioning Digital Foundry is because I think they are the biggest tech channel in, well, not tech channel, but for gaming analysis, graphics, and so on. So the reason I bring them to this conversation before starting is because we need to understand something. DF puts out their technical information. You take it or leave it as you want. What people does with the technical information, that is the problem, right? Is people using those details to, especially to fuel the console wars. This PlayStation versus Xbox thing is unbelievable. People are fighting because one game is running 1p or one frame better than the other one, and this is causing issues. We have our own tech fight in the computer space, in the PC space, with AMD, Nvidia, Intel, and AMD. But that's another discussion. When it comes to graphics, I think that people in the PC space tends to appreciate everything that is put in order for games to run and look better. Even though, initially ray tracing has been a little bit of a problem because people think it's, you need like a 4090 or stuff like that to even play games. I've been trying to change that conception and explain things in the channel to make that a little bit more so people can understand why ray tracing is so important and that you don't need the latest and the greatest to be able to play games with ray tracing. However, I remember seeing how some games use like checkerboard or dynamic resolution on console, and the PC port of that game didn't have these options. And of course, people were a little bit disappointed because that will help many lower end hardware to be able to run that game as good, if not better, than console. So I think PC space tend to appreciate more everything that tries to bring more quality to the games, because the thing is that the advantage we have in the PC space is that we can disable whatever we want to, while on consoles you have to live with that. If you don't like checkerboard for whatever reason, you either play with 4K checkerboard or play at 1080p, while on PC you can select exactly how you want to play. So the reason I'm explaining all of this is because the technical information is one thing, that's technical, and that's the way you use that information is up to you. It's like saying that the worst that has happening is that a knife were invented because people kill each other with them. They were not created, as far as I know, for that purpose initially, not to kill people. At least I'm not sure. I hope it was not. But we use it very differently. The only way I use a knife is to open a box, to cut something, or to eat, not to kill people. So the information that DF put out there is technical and specific information. So if a game is running at 4K, that's what the game is running, and that is what it is. Now, there is a difference between technical information and visual perception. And what I mean with this is that visual perception is something that I cannot technically explain to you or give to you. For example, if I put you two images, one is 4K native and one is 4K DLSS, which means it's been reconstructed from 1080p in this case, and you cannot see the difference between them, that's a visual perception that's on you, right? If I tell you this image is 4K and this one is DLSS, then you're going to say, oh well, the 4K image at least is technically more, is technically 4K, and then that's the number it is, and then you can say it's better just based on a number, just based on the fact that it's 4K. Because if I tell you that an Xbox games or is running at 4K while on PlayStation 5 is running at 1440p, you are to automatically say the 4K image is better, at least in terms of resolution. But if you're playing on a 1080p monitor, I don't think that's going to make much of a difference how the two images are, because the visual perception are going to be probably exactly the same on both images. But if you're fueling the console war, you're going to say, well, but Xbox is better because it's running at 4K. So at the end of the day, I don't think it should matter that much the technical information, other than for knowledge, for understanding how thing works. And that's how I perceive DF, as a knowledge base, as an understanding of thing, as seeing, oh, okay, this game is running at 4K, maybe if they run it at 1440p, maybe if I do this, I do that, or the developers do this other thing, oh well, there is effectively a problem on one of the platforms, so I'm going to buy the game on the other platform because, well, it's not optimized on this one, for example, right? So that technical information is that technical information. The problem with DLSS 3 is that there is not a way I can present this to you on a technical way. Because yes, I can maybe record the game and then show to you the errors that present some of the frames. And you are going to say, wow, DLSS 3 is bad. But it's because I'm showing you the errors. It's because when they show you how a game on checkerboard and they zoom in 3 times, oh, checkerboard is bad. But they are not trying to show you that checkerboard is bad. They're trying to show you the difference just for a technical perspective. Okay? But when playing the game, your visual perception is not going to be that of a zoom in 3 times game, because you're moving up, you have a moving object, the image is not static, your TV may be adding a lot of other problems or may not have a good motion resolution. So there is a lot of other things going on that is not just the zoom in or the technical information. So DLSS 3, to begin with, I don't have any way to record at 120 FPS or more. So whatever it is that I'm showing you at the moment of the 3 games I've tested, which is A Plague Tale Requiem, Fist, A Shadow of Forge, and Spider-Man Miles Morales, they are being recorded at 60 FPS because I have no way to record more than that. And also, at the same time that I'm recording that at 60 FPS, I have no idea what the software is actually recording in terms of the frames. It may be a bunch of generated frames, it may be only good frames, it may be 1 on 1, it may be 2 good, 1 bad, it may be 3 bad, and well, with bad I mean generated, and 3 good. I have no idea. So this is just to show you the information on screen from MSI Afterburner, but it's not for you to take it as the final quality of the game. So this whole explanation I'm giving to you is just to let you know that DLSS is more of a visual perception thing. And from my point of view, as I said, if you cannot discern between a 4K image and a 4K DLSS image reconstructed from 1080p, who cares? At the end of the day, that's the important thing. It's what you visualize, it's what you perceive. It's not what technically is, because the moment I say to you, oh, this one is 4K native, then this is better. Of course this is better, just because you have the technical knowledge. And when you're seeing the DLSS 3 running and dissected frame by frame, you are going to say, oh, those frames sucks. But the problem is they do not. At least in my case, I have this one here. You see this one, but this one I have 3 monitors. This one here is a 42-inch 4K 144 monitor that I play with, like, very close to. I love it. I like big monitors. And I have to say, playing these 3 games, I could not see a single issue. I could not see while playing a single issue. I'm not saying DLSS 3 is perfect, and I'm sure on many games there are going to be issues, because this is how the nature of the technology is, and they're going to be improved over time. But on these 3 games, while playing, I could not discern the problem while playing. And that's because the frames stayed for so little before a good frame came that I don't think any normal person could see a problem while playing at 120 FPS, which should be like, what, 8 milliseconds on a screen? So imagine having an image for 8 milliseconds, and the next one is going to be blended, because that's how we see, and that's why we see a movie at 24 FPS and it seems fluid, because our eyes blend. They have image retention. That's how movement works for all in our eyes. So that little image retention blends the frames together, creating the illusion of movement and the perfection of the DLSS 3, because whatever error doesn't stay long enough. So in my experience, DLSS 3 has been nothing but great, because I could perceive the added smoothness of the game. Okay, and this is important because the gaming needs has been growing exponentially, but GPU and CPU have not, because it's expensive and hard. Okay, so Moore's law says that, you know, the computer should double the power, the capacity, or the, you know, the exponential, whatever, every 18 months. It should double and be twice as fast every 18 months, and reduce the size by twice or something like that. The thing is that if we think about gaming have 3 areas of growing. One is the quality of the graphic itself. Let's just say that the graphics gets better and better, which needs more power every time. Let's put in this equation ray tracing as an example. Then we have the other thing that gamers are always asking: more frames. It's not that we are not staying at the same frame rate as we used to play 10 years ago. I mean on PC space mostly. And then we want more resolution. So these are 3 areas of growing, and they grow the game exponentially. For example, if we go from 1080p 30 FPS, and providing that the game and the resources needed are the same, we're talking about 62 million pixels that needs to be moved every second. Okay, so that same game, and now playing at 4K 60 frames per second, needs to move 497 million pixels per second. That's 8 times just to get double the frame rate and double the resolution. You need to have 8 times the power. As I said, thinking about linearity here, it may not be exactly the case, but if everything should move linear, that's sort of roughly how things. So we need 8 times the power, and that's considering it's the same game. Okay, it's the same situation, but we know that on top of this, you have to add stuff like ray tracing. So ray tracing normally costs you half the performance. So I'm going to say that we need 16 times more power to move a game from 1080p 30 to 4K 60 with ray tracing, for example. So how do we achieve that if game keeps growing exponentially, like 8 times, while cards, GPU, you get like twice the power every 2 years? The only way is to find clever and more intelligent ways to create those frames, those pixels. In the case of NVIDIA, they have created first Dlss, which is a technique to render the game at a lower resolution. In this game, let's say that they are rendering at 1080p and then move it to 4K. We are already taking off the GPU a big chunk of performance, because now we render at a lower resolution. But when this is not enough, you also need to create more frames. But these frames are not only a help to the GPU, but it's also to the CPU. We've seen already many games that are CPU bound when it comes to the 4090. Many games just many CPUs can simply generate more frames, because as you know, resolution doesn't affect the CPU, but frame does, because each frame needs to be prepared by the CPU. So the CPU needs to prepare each frame before it's sent to the GPU. So in this process, the CPU needs to do it as fast as possible. So if you have the fastest GPU on the planet, but your CPU is not able to prepare more than 60 frames per second, well, it doesn't matter. But in this case, then it comes the Dlss 3, and it says, well, I don't need you to create this in the middle frames. So if you are only able to provide me with 60 frames per second, maybe using the Dlss 3, I don't know how the power performance efficient working here, but let's just say it doubles because half of those frames are made up by the GPU, then you can have 120 FPS on the same CPU, because those frames are generated by the GPU. So even though that your CPU is not capable, then your GPU says, you know what, I will, without your help, because these are not real frames, okay? But talking about no real frame, this is another part of the problem. Many people just consider that the fact that they are not real frames to be bad because they are not real. So as I said, it doesn't matter at the end if they're real or not. At the end, what matters is the the visual perception you have. If everything you see seems okay, seems perfect, having the knowledge that they are not real, it doesn't matter. One thing, I am going to close with this because I think it's becoming too long of a video. But one thing I'm going to say is, people have never questioned how video works. Netflix, video codes, movies, Blu-rays, and all of that. You know that most of those frames are also not real, because let me explain to you a little bit of how it works on a very simplified way. So when you are encoding a video, what is happening and why every time is more CPU dependent and more CPU power dependent to be able to encode and decode a movie, is because what happens is that there is what is called a keyframe. That keyframe holds information for the next amount of whatever frames until a new keyframe is created. So what happens is that this keyframe holds a lot of information about the next frame. So if you have a blue sky where only some birds are flying, so there is no point on having a complete new frame for each of that scene that, let's say, it lasts for 5 seconds. Okay, so the keyframe holds the information of what is actually changing on the frame. So if only in the middle there is this flying bird and everything else remains blue, so what the codec does is only changing those pixels that have changed in them, because there is no point on putting new information over here because nothing is happening. It's the same as the keyframe. So normally keyframes are created when there is a change in a scene. So for example, if now there is a sudden change to I don't know, a dog walking or something else, then that's a keyframe, because this is a complete new scene and I cannot construct this scene starting from this one, or the amount of data needed to construct this is so much that it's better to just create a new keyframe that will hold information about the next frames, because now is a dog walking and many part of the other scene stays the same. So, and nobody has ever questioned this or considered they are fake frames, because technically you are not seeing a complete new frame. You're only seeing the difference between this frame and the previous frame, and that is in order to save bandwidth. The more efficient the code is, it means it needs more power to decode, because it's like more compressed, to call it in a way. More information is whole and more needs to be decompressed, because there is motion vectors information, there is color change information, there is neighboring pixels information. There is a lot of information on this one, but if you put but it's a lot less than having a complete new image for every single new frame. So that's the point of the codec, of the video codecs, is to try to be as efficient as possible. So, and nobody's questioning this, because what you look is great. Now maybe some of you will say, what, are you telling me those are not real frames? Now I can enjoy movies as I used to. That may be true, but because you have the knowledge now. So my point in all of this is that Dlss 3, from my perception, from my perspective, ran flawlessly. I'm not saying there is no errors, but my visual perfection couldn't discern absolutely anything. So if it's not, for me, that's good enough. I am sure there are going to be some games where this is not the case, and that's fine, but in my particular case, it was not. So for me, so far, DLSS 3 is a win, because there is no other way I could be able to play a Plague Tale Requiem over 100 FPS if it wasn't because of DLSS 3. So that's my opinion and my take on my own experience and on the 3 games I have shown you here. Hope you like it, and see you on the next video.